iliyotolewa na Bwana Tom Pigott.
Umezungumza kwa kina kabisa. Haya ni malalamiko ambayo yamekuwa yakijitokeza mara kwa mara. Unadhani sasa je, wana hoja ya msingi?
Unauliza maswali mazuri sana na maswali ya tafakari. Maswali ambayo hayawezi kujibiwa kwa dakika moja au kwa siku moja. Ni maswali yanayohitaji utafiti, yanayohitaji kusoma.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The rhythm of Africa, the power of the continent. This is Channel Africa, African perspective.
It's gone exactly 12 p.m. midday. A very good afternoon to you, Africa. Welcome to Africa Update on Channel Africa, the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, current affairs and sport. I'm Tammy Ngubeni sitting in today for Lulu Gabu. But first, over to the news desk.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Thank you, Tammy, and good afternoon. Senior Central African analyst at the International Crisis Group, Charles Boissels, says that the presidential and legislative elections are scheduled for the 28th of December are landmark because they are the first to be held since the adoption of the 2023 Constitution. The Central African Republic President, Faustin Archange Touadera, is seeking a second term. He has presented himself as a guarantor of stability. Campaigning has officially begun ahead of the presidential vote. Boissels comments.
Well, I think we can say that those risks are way less high than for the last election. As a reminder, the last election in 2020 was heavily disrupted by a rebel coalition, which later attacked the capital Bangui. Today, we are not in this scenario. The armed groups have never been as weak as today. And so we think that the election will be able to take place in most of the country, at least on the security side.
And M23 rebels say they will withdraw from the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo town of Uvira at the request of the U.S. administration. The rebels entered Uvira on the border with Burundi less than a week after the presidents of Congo and Rwanda met with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington and affirmed their commitment to a peace deal known as the Washington Accords. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the Rwanda's actions in Eastern Congo violated the Washington Accords and vowed to take action to ensure promises made to the president are kept. And armed men have kidnapped at least 13 people from a church in Nigeria's central Kogi state. The second such attack in as many weeks. The attackers stormed into Evangelical Church Winning All in the mainly rural farming district of Azgiri during a Sunday morning service, opening fire, then abducting some of the congregants. Only 2 weeks ago, gunmen raided a church in the nearby town of Ibija, kidnapping a pastor, his wife, and several church members. In recent weeks, President Bola Tinubu has ordered security chiefs to step up intelligence-led operations to curb kidnappings and approved the deployment of extra troops and police. Onto this now, as millions of South Africans mark the Day of Reconciliation today, visible signs of racial division remain in parts of the country. At Ngome, near Mnutu in the KwaZulu-Natal province, separate commemorations are taking place at the site of the Battle of Blood River. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver the keynote address at the government's commemoration event being held at the Ngome Museum, while a group of Afrikaners have gathered in a distance away to commemorate the same separately. Umzinyati District Municipality Mayor Tembisile Mncube says that the situation has existed for years and it remains a concern. She's expressed hope that the President's visit will help address ongoing divisions in the area.
We are here to celebrate the Day of Reconciliation. We need to be together, in fact, but unfortunately around or nearby we have I will call the whites. They are there. I think they're celebrating the Reconciliation Day as we are here, but to me, we need to be together so that the Reconciliation Day is done in a proper way. It is very important for the South Africans because we need to do things together.
And police in Australia have released more details about the gun attack at a Jewish celebration at Bondi Beach in Sydney, confirming that 2 homemade Islamist state flags were found in a vehicle used by one of the suspects. They told the protesters or reporters that improvised explosive devices were also recovered. The authorities said that the 2 attackers had travelled to the Philippines last month and that the reason for the trip was under investigation. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa for Channel Africa News, I am Matapelo Mahapi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, it's 4 days to go to the start of the Africa Cup of Nations tournament, and nations are continuing to arrive in Morocco, while the Proteas women's side are batting first against Ireland in the second ODI match in Gqeberha in South Africa's Eastern Cape province. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is exactly 6 minutes after 12 p.m. Central African Time. Coming up this hour on Africa Update, South Africa is celebrating Reconciliation Day, and travellers have been urged to be vigilant when travelling to high-risk areas. We are broadcasting live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, South Africa. You can also catch us on DSTV Audio Bouquet Channel 802, on OpenView on Channel 628, and you can live stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Google and Apple Play stores. Do join in the conversation. If you are in South Africa and are marking, Reconciliation Day, or wherever in the world that you may be, join us on X at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa, Instagram and YouTube as well at Channel Africa 1. Remember to use the hashtag update or Africa Update.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
On today's hashtag Africa Update asks, we know travellers are travelling around the world. It's Christmas season, but there have been calls and travellers have been urged to be vigilant when they're travelling to high-risk areas. Canada, for example, recently recommended heightened caution when travelling to South Africa, Tanzania, Senegal and Morocco. So what tips do you have for people travelling to other countries or even inside your own country? High-risk area or no high-risk area? Flagged or not flagged? It is a global village. For those who are travelling, what do they need to do in order to ensure their safety and the safety of their families, irrespective of which country you may be and which country you are traveling to? What are your safety tips for this festive season? Share your thoughts on Channel Africa's social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, and on Facebook you'll find us at Channel Africa. You can also send your comments to us as well as voice notes to our WhatsApp number, which is +27 63 406 9126.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 9 minutes after 12 p.m. Central African Time. Today, South Africa is commemorating National Reconciliation Day, and it's really to promote social cohesion, to promote healing, unity, and nation building. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering a keynote address at the national commemoration that's taking place at the Ngcume Museum in Ngutu local municipality in KwaZulu-Natal province. The theme this year is reaffirming reconciliation for future generations. Ndlandla Mahlangu reports.
South Africa's Day of Reconciliation is a public holiday on December 16th, established in 1995 to promote national unity, healing and forgiveness after apartheid, acknowledging both historical conflicts and the new democratic era. It's a day for citizens to reflect on past injustices, make amends and build a cohesive, non-racial nation, tackling ongoing inequalities and fostering peace. Advocate Sipho Mantula, researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at the University of South Africa, says it's a very important day in the history of the country.
Talking also about national unity, social cohesion and healing, but also a highly contested day in South Africa, both from a political and cultural front. Hence, you find that the day is almost marking 30 years. And it also coincides with the law that was passed in South Africa, the Promotion of National Unity and Reconciliation Act of 1995. It is important that when you look at the historical context, the day was known as the Day of Dingaan, but it was also known as the Day of the Vow. So the new government that came in after 1994, as you have alluded, that 31 years later, what are the gains and the losses? And I think we have more gains and we have also more losses. For me, when I have to audit and do a barometer, there is deficit of leadership in South Africa post-94. There is a deficit of nation-building concepts. There is the erasure of those who fought for the freedom and the human rights dignity of the people of this country. And that's how we see that this day is very important in a sense that it should not be political posturing by the co-governing parties of the GNU, but they should have a deep reflection whether was there truth, was there justice in this country after 1994. I doubt that there was either truth, there was justice, there was reconciliation.
Before 1995, the 16th of December was commemorated as Dingaan Day, or the Day of the Covenant, reflecting the fractured historical landscape of colonial and apartheid South Africa. In 1995, the democratic government redefined the day as a national day of reconciliation, transforming it from a symbol of division into a unifying platform for truth, justice, dialogue, healing, and shared nationhood. Mantula says as the country commemorates the day, a number of questions remain unanswered.
Looking also at the Kampepe Commission that investigates the issues of TRC, that also says, before reconciliation, why not we thought about reparation? Have we repaired the damage that Black people in this country suffered for more than 400 years? And now 31 years later, we want to heal those wounds, but we still creating more wounds to the present generation. Hence, when I look at the theme, it says, how do we reaffirm reconciliation to the future generations? What about the present generation? What about the past generation? We need to create that link of the past, the present, and the future.
Ordinary South Africans in Soweto have expressed their views on the significance of the day.
As a country, we still have a long way to still go because we are still not as reconciled. I think the politics are just getting out of control and it's just a free holiday. But it has nothing to do with the reconciliation. And I think as a country, we just still need to work harder to get to that reconciled state.
I think our Day of Reconciliation is a public holiday that promotes unity and reconciliation as a country. I think it is relevant that we celebrate and commemorate this day because it fosters a sense of national unity and social cohesion. I also think it's a day that you also self-reflect as a person, reconcile in your homes, reconcile in your families, reconcile in your friends, reconcile at work. It's not, I don't only associate it with the country. I just think it's a day to celebrate and reconcile in our personal spaces as well.
Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Ndlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 14 minutes after 12 p.m. Central African time. We stay in South Africa, but cast the net a bit wider to G20 affairs. The presidency of South Africa has reaffirmed the country's standing within the G20, dismissing any suggestion that the country needs an invitation to participate. Spokesperson Vincent Magwenya stressed that South Africa is a founding member of the bloc with an inherent right to take part in all G20 engagements. Magwenya went further, warning that the United States is pushing an approach that undermines multilateralism, an agenda, he says, must be confronted and prevented. SABC News correspondent Nick Harper filed this report.
I think it's interesting to note the severe lack of fanfare that is surrounding these initial G20 meetings. The finance ministers meeting that's meant to be getting underway and the Sherpas meeting. In any other country, under any other normal circumstance, would normally make a lot of fanfare about this. It would be an opportunity to speak about goals over the next 12 months. You would have officials from the State Department, the White House, coming forward to lay all of this out. And yet that's exactly what we are not seeing. This is something that is taking place without fanfare, without the opportunity of high-ranking officials to come out and champion not just the US causes, but really what the US hopes to achieve over the next 12 months. But I think that very much aligns with the Trump White House and its seemed plans for the G20. As we heard, this idea of it being an affront to multilateralism, excluding South Africa, but we know that multilateralism is not exactly something that the Trump administration loves and enjoys. It's something that it tries to shirk. Its involvement in the United Nations, for example, which is all about multilateralism, is very, very lacking. And yet the Trump administration is all about that unilateral approach, that America first idea. And therefore we're really hearing nothing about what is taking place over these 2 days, nothing about the agenda and what they're hoping to discuss. We've heard from the Trump administration in very scant details about what they will be looking to do over the next 12 months, but in terms of these first few days, the opportunity for fanfare, it's certainly something that the Trump administration is not taking the opportunity to publicise. They are very much looking for a scaled-down G20 set of meetings during the course of this year. I think really leading up to the Leaders' Summit next November, an opportunity perhaps for Donald Trump to take the stage and be involved in a little bit of multilateralism, but scaling back many of the meetings that you would normally see during that one-year presidency, the opportunity to try and grapple with some of the biggest, not just economic problems facing the world, but other things like inequality, poverty, climate change. Those type of things will not, it would seem, be on the United States agenda. In terms of other countries and their response, we've already heard a bit of grumbling from other countries, including, for example, the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He said that he was hoping to change President Donald Trump's mind at some point over the next year to allow South Africa to be involved. We've also heard from China, who would prefer, they say, for South Africa to be involved. We know, as we heard just a moment ago, South Africa is not looking for other countries to boycott this meeting, but they're also hoping that this will not set a precedent, the ability for one country to unilaterally exclude another. And that's why we've seen the Department of International Relations and Cooperation putting out this letter to other G20 nations saying that they are requesting that the issue of South Africa's exclusion be placed on the agenda. They want discussion and clarification about this point. They want to ensure that it doesn't set a precedent going forward. So they are petitioning other G20 members to try and take their side, but they're not looking for an all-out boycott. we know that as part of this initial Monday-Tuesday set of meetings, we should be seeing the finance ministers, the bank governors getting together, at least to begin discussions on things like stability, growth, financial system reforms. But in terms of one other essential set of meetings that will not be taking place, and that's the G20 Troika. This is the idea that the last G20 president, the current G20 president, and the future G20 president, so a grouping of 3 countries, would come together to discuss things. So normally you would see South Africa, the United States and the United Kingdom, who will be taking this over in 2026, 2027, come together to discuss really an idea for consistency, for collaboration. But the United States has told South Africa that Troika Forum will be ditched. That will not be taking place. So there is that concern, that idea of continuity, continuing on some of the really big things that were discussed in Johannesburg. That simply will not happen this time around.
That was SABC News correspondent Nick Harper.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It's gone exactly 20 minutes after 12 p.m. Central African time. Our travellers have been urged to be vigilant when travelling to high-risk areas. Canada, for example, recently recommended heightened caution when travelling to South Africa, Tanzania, Senegal and Morocco, while also telling its citizens to avoid travel to the Central African Republic, to Syria, Iran, Libya, Iraq and Ukraine. We're now joined on the line by security analyst and former Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile. So good to be talking to you once again, Andy, and happy holidays to you.
Hey, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, my sister, after quite some time. I am not enjoying the holiday. As you know, I get invited left, right, and center. But look, it's so much of a pleasure to be on your show and to talk about crime prevention, crime combating, and crime detection that has to do with human trafficking and organized crime, amongst other things.
And really, this is prevalent, especially during this time, where it's festive season and, crooks are going to use this opportunity to make hay while the sun shines. But before we get into, the details of it, what is your reaction to the warnings that have been issued by Canada?
I think they must be taken head off, and I think it's much more deeper than me saying people should be very vigilant. I am moving from an element that says, Tammy, you will be shocked. Child trafficking is worse at this point in time. Worse. And in South Africa, we are part and parcel of those statistics.
When we look at the countries that Canada has highlighted that South Africa is a high-risk area, Tanzania, Senegal, and Morocco, but also speaking of the Central African Republic, Syria, Iran, Libya, Iraq, and the Ukraine, one can see that some of those are war-torn countries, and that would be the reasoning behind Canada highlighting them. But your thoughts on South Africa also on that list, as well as other countries like Senegal, Tanzania, Morocco, and the CAR?
Tammy, having had a witness about 5 people being arrested at the airport, and also considering the 17 people who are still in Russia, having had served in Donbass, in the fight against Ukraine. This makes it a little bit of a scaremonger for the rest of the world to come here. The world does not know. Those who have issued out the notices do not know whether we are having sleeper cells of those who are recruiting here, and many other things that have to do with the fear that would get us on the list of those that are dangerous to visit because of our connections to Russia and the war itself.
So those who are going to be traveling across borders this festive season, what are some of the primary security threats that you would highlight?
My wonderful sister, it is always very, very important that I take you back to one of our discussions, zero trust. Operate on zero trust. Trust no one until you are in that country and you are back to your own home country. And what are the things that you're supposed to do? Not sharing location where you are or location where you are going, and also verifying the people who would be picking you up, and also ensuring that the area where you are is an area that the authorities have easy access to in that country. What am I talking about? You might want to visit Nigeria only to find that Boko Haram in that area is dominant, and they would want to kidnap women or kidnap children or generally people in that area. So what we need to do, you need to do a security profile of the area, of the country that you're going to, so that you can be able to then plan the routes that you're going to use for security as well as personal safety. These are some of the measures that people need to look at. I think number one, if you ask me what number one issue would be in ensuring that you are safe, do a security profile of the country, do a threat risk analysis or assessment, and then from there you can then begin to plan where you are going and for how long. And should there be an emergency, how will your security and personal safety be guaranteed by yourselves or the people in the area or the area itself, in terms of your escape routes, in terms of the people in those communities cooperating with law enforcement agencies.
And I mean, you're really talking about being vigilant and not taking this for granted. But are there current or perhaps emerging regional tensions that we should be aware of that could affect border crossings?
For now, in our country, in the country and the neighboring countries, there are no very serious tensions. We only have a problem with the country that we are behind them on the global crime index of the GTOC, Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. By the way, on the world index, the World Index report of 2025 says we are number 8, if not number 7, after DRC. And you and I know that South Africa participated in the fight against the M23 rebels on that part of the world. So those are some of the critical issues that one looks at from a regional conflict point of view, which would then expose those who are traveling to criminality being kidnapping, criminality being kidnapping for ransom and many other things. So, long story short, and also some of these warnings coming that we pick up from other countries about South Africa, and those countries would not have substance. And some of them would be used tactically and strategically to disempower economically those countries at this point in time. I don't normally take them very, very serious before one does a global security analysis and finding out what informs those warnings that have identified South Africa as one of those countries not to be visited from a safety and security point of view, as well as criminality. Now, go ahead.
You know, Andy, we've spoken about circumstances outside of ourselves, environments, cultures and countries, etc., and the state that they may be in. But let's personalize this a little bit and bring the individual into this. What are the legal mistakes that travelers make when they are at border posts? And perhaps also, while you're answering that, if you could highlight the behaviors or items that would commonly trigger border searches if one is traveling between borders.
If one travels and goes to border post A or border post B, there are things that need to be looked at, and those things would be other documents of that individual, genuine documents. I am speaking from an area of border security as well as law enforcement in that area. The people who are crossing into South Africa from our northern borders and eastern borders, are they the right people in terms of documentation? If not, it's another ball game. Visit us going into the being invited to the our eastern or over our eastern borders. I am trying to bring to you northern Mozambique, Cabo Delgado, and the terrorism that happens in that space and the dangers that it may pose for those who are traveling into that area. The northern part of our country, going into Zimbabwe, what are the risks that will be associated with us going into that area? Might be some of the things that you need to look at.
Andy Mashele, always a pleasure, and thank you so much for some really sage and practical advice on what to do and to make sure that you and your family are safe during this festive season, and by all means trying to avoid those border searches and not, trigger a search on yourself as well. Andy Mashele, Interpol ambassador, security analyst and former Interpol ambassador, thank you so much for your insight once again, and happy holidays to you. That's Andy Mashele, bringing us to exactly 12:30 p.m. Central African Time. Let's head over now for the latest headlines.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. Headlines this hour. Senior Central Africa analyst at the International Crisis Group, Charles Bossels, says the presidential and legislative elections scheduled for the 28th of December are landmark because they are the first to be held since the adoption of the 2023 Constitution. And M23 rebels will withdraw from Uriva, DRC as the U.S. administration's request following their recent entry into the town. This comes after a meeting between the President of Congo and Rwanda, with U.S. President Donald Trump reaffirming their commitment to the Washington Accords. And plans to build a church in honor of Russia's war dead in a riverside park in the southern city of Krasnodar have sparked a rare protest by local people who publicly appealed to President Vladimir Putin to prevent it from going ahead. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It's a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. So in exactly 5 days, Africa's greatest event, the Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations tournament, will kick off in Rabat in Morocco with a Group A clash between the host nation Morocco as well as the Comoros Islands. That is to start a 4-week race to the title. So the match will kick off at 9 p.m. Central African Time and will be watched by a sold-out crowd at the Prince Mullah Abdallah Stadium. Exciting excitement is building up this week as the host nation opens the 35th edition of the tournament, the first time the country has staged the AFCON tournament in 37 years. Now, the CAF's General Secretary Vernon Mosenga Omba says Morocco has provided world-class infrastructure not only for African footballers but also for supporters from across the continent as well as beyond. Now, this year's edition is expected to surpass the historic success of the 2023 tournament in Côte d'Ivoire, which recorded more than 1.5 billion global TV viewers as well as 2.4 billion digital streams, setting new benchmarks for African football visibility. Well, Bayern Munich coach Vincent Kompany says AFCON competition should not be underestimated as it is important to African players. AFCON is the oldest continental competition in Africa, which was launched back in 1957 in Sudan. The Belgian also highlighted the importance of the competition, emphasizing its value for African players. Kompany also confirmed that he backs the Democratic Republic of Congo in the competition as his father is also a Congolese. He says Congo is part of his heritage and naturally he supports the country. Well, after weeks of drama following utterances by Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Broos, not all seems well in the South African camp. And just 5 days to go, or rather 4 days to go, a day to go before they depart for the Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Morocco, it's a cause for concern for Captain Ronwen Williams. But he is confident that the mood as well as the spirit in camp will improve once they've worked through the issues plaguing the team as well as the squad at full strength. So the questions regarding the coach's utterances last week were not entertained. The utterance made at Orlando Pirates defender Mbegezeli Mbogazi and his agent Basia Michaels were regarded racist as well as sexist, according to the United Democratic Movement, a political party in South Africa. Let's hear what Captain Ronwen Williams had to say about the mood in camp. By the way, Bafana will be playing Ghana later on today in their send-off match to the AFCON tournament.
We had our own small little problems as a team. But I'm glad those things happened, especially inside the team going into the major tournament now. We had a chance to sit together, sort things out, try and fix the issues that we have as a team. And training has been good, but we haven't been at our best as well. So I think once the team settles down this week, I think things will be better, because I had a strange feeling this week that the mood in the team hasn't been the best. But we'll sort it out and, we'll keep fighting.
On to this now, the ATP will introduce a new extreme heat rule for the 2026 season, which will allow players on the men's tour to take a 10-minute cooling break during best of 3 sets single matches. The rule is similar to what the WTA, which governs women's professional tennis, brought in more than 30 years ago to protect players in the heat. At the Shanghai Masters in October, temperatures were as high as 34 degrees Celsius and humidity at 80% in the daytime, and after world number 15 Holger Rune needed medical treatment during his third round match. In a statement, the ATP said the policy was for strengthening protections for players competing in extreme conditions. The new rule also is based on the wet bulb globe temperature, which measures heat stress in direct sunlight. It also involves observing temperature, humidity, wind speed, sun angle, as well as cloud cover. And finally, Portugal will return to the Formula One calendar in 2027 as well as in 2028. The race will be held at the Algarve International Circuit near Portimão, which held 2 Grand Prix during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 as well as in 2021. Portugal will effectively be a replacement for the Dutch Grand Prix, which will be held at the Zandvoort for the last time in 2026. Portimão, which is 2.89-mile track that swaps over hilly terrain, and it's highly regarded for its driving challenge. It is also a rural location north of the coast and also a reputation for problematic access. Well, that it concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Call us as well on +27 11714 4459. It is 12:37 p.m. Central African Time. Back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
From Channel Africa, about to have ourselves a good time right now.
Come on, brother, man.
It's a whole thing.
You've partnered up with Ufocalistic, hey, based on a true story.
You know, it's actually crazy for you to put it like that, partnered up, you know. This is someone I look up to from a very long time. 3 years ago, we put out a single, Pele Pele.
Yeah.
You know, that was my first record with him. This project, based on a true story, the album was so highly anticipated and premeditated on our end, you know, because it's something we constantly, you know, kept on going back and forth about, but we never actioned it. It's actually quite crazy because all of this is happening whilst we are both working on our albums, you know. I'm working on my album 31314 because there's a record, 31314, the interlude, so it's like a prelude to the album, you know.
Let me pronounce it properly. Is it 31314? 31314.
The Upside, live and real. It's dynamic. Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you and good afternoon. Australia's South 32 says it will place the Mosel aluminium smelter in Mozambique under care and maintenance by March, incurring a $60 million once-off cost after failing to secure a power deal with the government. Negotiations between the Perth-based firm and Mozambique's government and power suppliers have been going on for several years to reach an agreement for the smelter's energy-intensive operations. There are strong views that Starlink could be closer to launching in South Africa following a directive by Communications Minister Solly Malatsi to the telecoms regulator to review its local ownership rules. Malatsi issued the directive to the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa last week. It could pave the way for Elon Musk's SpaceX and other satellite internet companies to operate in South Africa without meeting the 30% local black ownership requirement. Malatsi has responded to the criticism, saying people aren't genuinely concerned about the policy, but instead using outrage to slow down progress.
In May this year, we issued a policy directive that sought to harmonize regulations between both the provisions of the BBBE Act and also the regulations that were issued by the Independent Communications Authority in 2021, which resulted in a limitation that we believe should not have happened, where it limited the provisions to empowerment to only ownership.
The Limpopo Tourism Agency in South Africa says its efforts to attract tourists are beginning to bear fruit. The CEO, Moses Ngobeni, says they have seen an increase in the number of tourists visiting various parts of the province this festive season. The areas include the prime tourism area Hoedspruit. Ngobeni says the new direct flight between Hoedspruit and Cape Town is an advantage.
There are tourists who are coming from overseas landing in Cape Town. You know, they have that easy access into the wildlife haven of South Africa, which is this place, Maruleng. It helps people to access this place, and it's so easy, for people to fly 2 hours, from Cape Town. You are in Limpopo, you can go to Kruger National Park, you can go to Mahuba to the Fufu slides or the canopy tours. You can do anything. From Palabura Gate of the Kruger is not far from here. And that's where, in the whole of Kruger, if you want to see or experience the Elephant Museum, you come to Litawa Camp through the Palabura Gate.
China has dramatically reduced tariffs on European Union pork imports worth over $2 billion in the final ruling of an anti-dumping investigation, widely seen as a response to the bloc's duties on Chinese electric vehicles. China will impose tariffs of between 4.9% and 19.8% on pork imports from the bloc for a 5-year period starting on Wednesday. That is a partial reprieve for European producers who rely heavily on the Chinese market for offal exports. As the European Union has looked to push car makers towards electric vehicles, sales of EVs across the continent have been uneven, skewed more to northern and western countries, while nations further south and east have tended to lag. The EU is now easing emissions targets for 2035 amid strong pushback from the industry, which says EV demand has picked up more slowly than expected and it needs more time to make the shift from combustion engines. In Norway, EV sales hit 94% of total car sales in the first 7 months of 2025. Now let's have a look at financial indicators this afternoon. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 451. In Botswana, 13 pula 51. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 40. Zambia, 23 kwacha 01. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 42. In Russia, 80 rubles 2. India, 90 rupee 53. In China, 71.05. South Africa, 16 rand 87 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is trading at $4,344, platinum at $1,744 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $61.39 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. As 2025 draws to a close, we pause to honor the spirits that connect us. The festive season reminds us of what truly matters: family, community, and unity. No matter where you gather or reflect, Channel Africa is with you, bringing you stories and voices that are shaped by the African perspective.
Something significant happened on this day. Asanda, you were a baby, I'm sure. I'm not even sure if you were born. No, you were a baby, yeah.
Yoga. Matseko is still trying to convince me and look me
No,
over.
I've done that already, and you're going to come now on the journey.
I will try.
From all of us to all of you, may your season be safe and peaceful. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 12:45 Central African Time as we turn our focus to the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review, which is co-hosted by UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency and Switzerland, began on Monday in Geneva, Switzerland. The forum, which runs until the 17th of December, brings together senior government officials, civil society, the private sector, academia, faith leaders, and most importantly, refugees to advance new solutions and assess how pledges made over the past years are being translated into real impact. Filippo Grandi, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, says this past year has been defined by one storm after another.
This past year has been defined by one storm after another. Altogether, a perfect storm, really. Witness the unending atrocities committed in Sudan, in Ukraine, in Gaza, and in Myanmar. In the past few days alone, we have seen yet another kindergarten, yet another apartment building, yet another hospital bombed, killing dozens and displacing thousands more, adding to the millions already forced to flee senseless violence in search of safety. In a global context in which hate is allowed to increasingly spread racist divisions, as yesterday's appalling massacre against the Jewish community in Sydney sadly proves. A year when refugees were frequently vilified scapegoated in so many places, with their suffering cynically used by traffickers for profit, and their situation by politicians to gain votes for the next election. A year of repeated attacks on the 1951 Refugee Convention and on the very institution of asylum. And of course, a year when the sudden, drastic, irresponsible and short-sighted collapse of foreign assistance continues to devastate the aid sector, inflicting so much unnecessary pain in its wake. On refugees, of course, but also on all of you, working to bring whatever relief you still can.
The key global gathering on refugee issues falls at a time when reaffirming global support for refugees is essential. Asylum is increasingly politicized and undermined. Humanitarian funding is shrinking. Refugee rights are under pressure, and global solidarity is being tested.
We have come a long way. It is important to remember that. I know that the temptation is to always focus on the day's problems. Indeed, there are real emergencies that must be addressed, real obstacles to overcome, and sometimes we are tempted to despair. But if we are to stay the course, if we are to remain on track, we must also learn to lift our gaze. To understand where we're going, we need to remember where we came from. And so my main message today as we open this progress review of the Global Refugee Forum is that we have already accomplished much. We should not shy away from that. On the contrary, now is the time to build on it.
That was Filippo Grandi, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, addressing the first day of the Global Refugee Forum, the GRF Progress Review in Geneva.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 10 minutes to 1 p.m. Central African time, and you know exactly what that means. It means that the upside is coming up in just a moment. The one half of the upside with us right now. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing, Tammy? I'm sitting on the other side today.
Well, I love this musical chairs that we're playing, and we're going to continue doing this for the foreseeable part of today,
I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about the upside. What do you have in store for us today?
So here's what's coming up this afternoon. You know how ChatGPT has become everyone's go-to for pretty much everything and anything. We are going to ask the question, can AI understand your skin? We'll be joined by a doctor who will be unpacking some of the most frequently asked skincare questions that people pose to ChatGPT.
That's the question I was going to ask you. Skin, are you talking like skin color, skin tone?
Skincare.
Or are you
the
talking
routines.
about skincare, the routine?
Absolutely.
Right.
Because we're relying on it for everything now. So we no longer need to ask our friends or our family or mothers. We like ChatGPT, how can I get flawless skin like Tami Ngubeni? So ChatGPT will then list all these skincare routines. So we'll be unpacking and really getting testimonies from people who have tried it out and have seen results as a result of having asked ChatGPT. And then later on, we get into conversation about a concert that will be taking place not later this year, in January 2026. It's called Sounds of Legends Concert, which will be bringing South Africa's heritage hits to life across Johannesburg, Durban, and Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga. So that's
like
all coming
Limpopo.
up. Like Limpopo. So that's all coming up.
Sounds absolutely amazing. I'm really quite intrigued about that ChatGPT conversation that you're going to have. I mean, they've completely replaced encyclopedias. I wonder actually
100%.
who still has encyclopedias.
I don't think anyone does.
Maybe just for the aesthetics of it and just for the look, you look very studious and having a library and a study room with encyclopedia. But look, everything's just digital now. So looking forward to the upside coming up in about 8 minutes' time.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za.
Now, Southern Africa has a generally warm climate with clear seasonal patterns. But the region has seen a lot of extreme weather conditions, and this is according to weather forecaster Lehlohonolo Thobela. Thobela elaborates.
One thing to note is that for the past seasonal forecasts that we've had in the past 5 years, we've had above normal temperatures expected, especially for daytime temperatures and minimal. Now for this year, we're expecting a weak La Nina into the summer, but below normal temperatures are expected. But all the heat that's been happening for the past 5 years, it seems to be warmed up and is also assisting in the extreme weather conditions, especially for the central and the eastern parts of the country. I always say, think of the kettle. You remember the old kettles where you put on the kettle and then it would boil? At the end, you have to pull out the cable for it to stop boiling because the water goes up. The same thing happens. What do you think all the heat is doing? It's definitely building up into more of extremes, especially in the eastern parts. And one of the triggers that we have in thunderstorms is heat. So that's why you will always see most of your thunderstorms starting just after 2, around 3 p.m. into the afternoon, because you have enough heat to trigger all these thunderstorms. But one of the things that we're getting more is moisture, and rain needs a lot of moisture for it to happen. And we've been having a lot of feed from the northern parts covering Botswana, Namibia, and most parts of those systems, bringing most of the moisture in the eastern parts and more of the high pressure systems in the eastern areas. So we're getting more and more of the rain. But one thing, before you have climate change, you have climate variability. So this is not really uncommon for us to see in terms of how extreme it can get in the eastern parts, and this is because most of the areas have climate variability. So KZN can vary from 5 years, you'll have more rain, and in the next you have less rain. But one thing you need to know, when we speak about climate change, you need to study about 30 years for you to actually get to saying this happened and it's because of climate change. Weather patterns needs to be studied, but one thing I can say, we're having more of the extremes in the eastern parts, and they're really, really getting more frequent, and it's all due to the heat and more moisture, and we're still yet to see more rain in the summer.
That was weather forecaster Lehlohonolo Thobela.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It is 5 minutes to 1 p.m. Central African time as we turn our focus now on Australia. The country is pushing for tougher gun laws. This is after 16 people were killed in a mass shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach on Sunday. This was the worst gun violence in the country in nearly 30 years. The two alleged gunmen were a 50-year-old man who was killed at the scene and his 24-year-old son, who is now in a critical condition in hospital. Bonolo Maribe compiled this report.
Devastation reigns on Australia's streets as citizens mourn the victims of Sunday's shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach. The attack, which killed 16 people, including one suspect, unfolded during a Hanukkah celebration, the Jewish festival of lights, on the beach. Authorities say that 4 more lives could have been lost without a bystander, 43-year-old fruit shop owner Ahmed Al-Ahmed intervening. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the attack.
What we saw was an act of pure evil, an act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores in an iconic Australian location, Bondi Beach, that is associated with joy, associated with families gathering, associated with celebrations, and it is forever tarnished.
New South Wales Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon declared it as a terrorist incident and confirmed a thorough investigation is underway.
We commenced Operation ARQUS, ARQUES, which is a joint counter-terrorism operation. That is New South Wales Police working very closely with our Commonwealth partners to ensure that we thoroughly investigate the circumstances of the incident yesterday. We have progressed at pace overnight with that investigation, and as a result of investigations undertaken, I can say that we are not looking for a further offender. We are satisfied that there were 2 offenders involved in yesterday's incident. One is deceased. The second is in critical but stable condition in hospital at the moment.
New South Wales Premier Chris Minns called for stricter gun laws.
I think it's time that we have a change to the law in relation to the firearms legislation in New South Wales. We want to make sure that prospective reform and change in New South Wales has a lasting impact, but it's not the last time I'll be mentioning it, and you can expect action soon.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog urged Australia to combat anti-Semitism.
We send our warmest strength from here, from Jerusalem, and we repeat our alert time and again to the Australian government to seek action and fight against the enormous wave of anti-Semitism which is plaguing Australian society.
Meanwhile, tributes have poured in from around the world, condemning the attack and offering condolences to the victims' families. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Well, that's how we come to the end of Africa Update for this afternoon. Just thought to recap on some of the key issues really that were discussed this afternoon that are really worth remembering. We spoke to Andy Mashile a bit earlier on, security analyst and former Interpol ambassador, and he was speaking about how to best conduct yourself to ensure that you and your loved ones are safe this festive season. He says, operate on zero trust while you are in foreign lands. Don't share your moves. Don't let people know where you're going, where you're going to be. And I know with social media now, it's such a big one. Verify who will be transporting you. Yes, they may be total strangers, but do those background checks to make sure that you are going to be in safe hands. Wherever you'll be vacationing, make sure that authorities will have easy access to that area and plan your routes. Do a security profile of the area and the country where you will be going and have that escape route. I think that is sound advice for all of us who are going to be traveling this festive season. We hand over now to the upside with Tebogo and Matseko, and they bring you the best of the good life. From myself, Tami Ngubeni, this has been Africa Update on this Tuesday.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website.